Okay, it's at the end of a very long day, and I decided it was time to make one of my very favorite little snacks. I've shown it to you before, the protein cheesecake. I showed you how to make it in a 7-inch springform pan and surround it with parchment paper. The pans are a little bit tricky to clean. Not all of you have it, but Anna gave me this idea in making little miniature ones in silicone muffin tin. So we're going to make these tonight because they only take about 10 or 11 minutes to bake, so it's not long. They freeze beautifully. They're in bite-sized pieces. And I've made some adjustments to the recipe since last time. So we're going to start with 9 eggs. So I think last time I was using 8. You can use 9 or 10 because we really want this to be all about the protein. And then we're going to be using grass-fed organic cottage cheese and the grass-fed organic cream cheese. So we're using about 3/4 cup of cottage cheese. And we're going to use 1 brick of cream cheese. Now, if you don't, this one is it does have some dairy, so if you don't want the cottage cheese, you can actually make it without the cottage cheese. I just think this gives it a little bit nicer texture, but you could go without the cottage cheese. And if you don't want to use cream cheese, you can take yogurt that works for you, drain it so it's very thick like cream cheese, and make sure you measure it so you've got 8 ounces.
How do they drain yogurt?
You drain it just by putting yogurt into a colander and let the liquid, it would be whey in a dairy, but if you're using a coconut yogurt or some other, you just want to make sure there's no extra liquid in the yogurt because it wouldn't be thick and creamy like cream cheese. Okay, then we have 1 stick of butter. The old recipe said 8 ounces. This is only 4 ounces. That was a mistake, but I did correct it. I just don't know if you saw it. So this is 4 ounces of butter at room temperature. And I'm going to put my favorite sweetener, which happens to be monk fruit with erythritol. But if you don't want to do that, and you do okay with monk fruit, you literally only need about 1 to 2 teaspoons of the liquid, purely to taste. And then you wouldn't have any of the sugar alcohols. And then we're going to put about a teaspoon of vanilla. So that's a little bit more than 1 capful. That was messy. Okay, so we have just made the cheesecake except for letting it make noise in our Vitamix. So we're going to turn it on. Turn it on. It's done. Now, how simple is that? So at the end of a day, and you want something that's just a nice treat for later on, well, you know you're not supposed to eat after it's dark or after dinner, but we can make it and then chill it, and then tomorrow morning you could actually even have this for breakfast because it's basically protein. Okay, so instead of doing a springform pan and all of that, Forrest got me these as a gift, and these are silicone, so you don't have to use paper liners. Now you can, but when you put paper liners in regular muffin tins and you put an egg mixture, it tends to stick to the paper. It works, it's just a little bit messy. These are incredibly easy. So what I did, because I have found that this makes, let's see, this is 12, it makes about 19. Depends on how much you fill it. So I have sprayed it with almond oil, not almond, avocado oil spray. I'm going to do a few more over here so you can see how I did it. Very easy, but we don't want all that extra oil. So I just take a paper towel and make sure there's no big globs of oil. Okay, that's it. Now we're going to pour it, and you can get it not quite that full, because it will puff up, but then when it cools, it goes down. So technically you want it about 7/8 full. That one's about perfect. Are they all going to be perfect? No, but I've never had any of them run over. And then we're going to put it in a regular oven. It would be 350 degrees for about somewhere between 9 to 12 minutes, depending on how your oven cooks. With our Breville, I actually do it at 340, and I do it for 10 minutes. So every oven is different. This, you won't be able to see the jiggles, which you want so it doesn't get too dry. When I do it in the springform pan, I want it to still be somewhat jiggly so that it's creamy. Now this, you're not going to see the jiggles because it's going to puff up like a popover. Okay. We may not get 12, 13, 14. We'll see how many we get. And we're going to cook it for about 10 minutes. We're going to put it in the oven, and then we're going to come back and you'll see it when it's all done, all puffed up, absolutely beautiful. And best of all, it's going to taste amazing. So this is going to go right into the oven, preheated, and we're going to take it over here. And there we go, and I'll make sure it's right at 10 minutes, and we'll come back and see that puff, 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 and then you'll be able to imagine how wonderful it'll taste in the morning. Guess what? The timer's going off. Let's see how they look. You're going to see which ones I filled too full and which ones are just right. Yes, you can see that very first one had way too much in it. It overflowed a little bit, but you know what? That's totally okay, because we'll just separate it like that, and that one will be mine. But see, these are all perfect. Now, while that's cooling, we'll put our other batch in, and they were filled about right. We'll make sure we've set our timer. I'm going to do about 11 minutes, and they're going to go. Now these are going to set and cool. See, they're already starting to drop down, kind of like popovers. And once they're cool, you really don't even need to run a knife around. When it's totally cool, you just go from underneath and you pop them out. And the best part is they freeze beautifully. So you can freeze them in a layer like this, but if they're totally cool, you can put them on their sides and line them up and put them in a container, freeze them, and take one out when you want a delicious protein treat. Protein cheesecake, the simplest, easiest way possible. Or you can do it in the bigger pan. Do what works for you, but most of all, play with it, and enjoy the delicious texture and flavor.